Another view of the river now, and a glimpse of what the river back before the dams came out looked like. If you look at the pylons, and I'm going to zoom in on them a little bit so you can see them a little bit better, you can see that they're telling you where the water level used to be. You know, I mean, yes, those dams have been gone for a little over 10 years now, but for most of the life of this bridge, there was a reservoir that this bridge went over, and you can see that it's showing you how high the river or the water used to be here. And if we look closer to these, maybe the camera will pick it up. You can see it right there. Just think, that's what this used to look like. It used to be a still, relatively still body of water, bank to bank, at about 10 to 15 feet higher than the river is right now. And instead, all you see is rock and water flow. More views of the condos that now inhabit these mill buildings, and the powerhouse there with the river walk in the foreground. It's just become such a pleasant area to recreate and to walk dogs and to run and to ride bikes. It's impossible to overestimate the economic value and cultural significance that having a river walk created along urban rivers is for our metropolitan areas in the United States. These places become meccas for outdoor enthusiasts of all kinds. You know, whether it's people training for marathons, people who want to, you know, try their hand at fishing, people who want to kayak in the river or even swim, or just folks that want to just come down to the river and sit on a bench and enjoy the afternoon. All of that and more are the benefits of having river walks in this country. Just a look down the river walk, you can see all kinds of activities going on, from simple walking to pet walking to fishing, to hanging out and watching the water on Wave Shaper Island. Just a beautiful architecture that is left down here from days gone by. River walks are really, really cool. We found very little difference in the fish community in this stretch of the river before and after dam removal. Prior to dam removal, which the lowest one was just upstream of that rapidy area there in Wave Shaper Island, before that dam was removed, there were 5 or 6 species of fish that we would collect in this part of the river that we never found above it. Most of those were fish that were associated with the downstream big reservoir, Lake Eufaula, things like blue catfish, several sucker species, shad, skipjack herring, which is another kind of shad, channel catfish, those flathead catfish. We found all those down here. We never found them above that dam. And after that dam was removed, we still didn't find those species up there. We suspect that the river channel alteration, specifically here at the end with the Wave Shaper and that big rapid on the Alabama side that was definitely built up, probably still serves as a barrier for most fish species, especially only a couple years after the dams were removed. We were really surprised to find not much difference 5 years after the first dam was removed. We still saw the same patterns, although we started to see a few fish in the upper area that we hadn't seen before. We got a gar up there that we had never seen a gar up there before, and we saw a gizzard shad or two. Didn't get our nets on them. One thing we saw before the dams were removed is eels. This is a really large adult eel that we collected. I think it was out of the City Mills pool, if I'm not mistaken, in 2009. We didn't see any when we were there. To be fair, they're not easy to shock. They're dark. They're the same color as the rocks. And knowing eels, there's nothing they can't get around. They've been known to go over top of dams. So my guess is they're still there.
This is one of the endemic sucker species that are found there. This one is an Apalachicola red horse. It's found only in the Chattahoochee, Flint, and Apalachicola rivers. It gets to be about 5 pounds and 22, 23 inches. This is a fish we only found below Eagle Phenix. It's found in many, many places. We found this in some of the streams that we sampled in Columbus this summer, in the Chattahoochee River around Valley. We find them in the Chattahoochee River above West Point. But we never found any of these or even saw one in the whitewater course. We did finally get a gar in the very last sample in 2017. We finally got a gar. We saw a couple others, so there does seem to be some movement of fish. We never saw or sampled a gar in 14 and 15. That was just a couple years after the dams were removed. Sunfish galore. There's a 4 species of sunfish. You know, we have the red breast sunfish up in the upper left hand, the bluegill down on the below him. We have the red ear sunfish in the upper right hand corner, and then we have long ear sunfish is the bottom right hand side. That's also actually a non-native species that has been introduced probably sometime in the last 25 years, and they seem to be growing in abundance in both the river and the streams that flow into the river. We found quite a few of them in the streams in Columbus this year. Probably one of the coolest catfish that you're ever going to see. They are found in coastal plain streams pretty much from the Apalachicola River around Florida into lower South Carolina. This is a spotted bullhead. One of the things that happens to bullheads when flathead catfish get introduced is that they're the first ones to go. Bullheads are small. They're right there with the flathead catfish, and they just decimate native bullhead populations. So that one place that we haven't found flatheads yet, and we still find these guys, is in Bibb Pond. That is the lake above North Highlands Dam. It's basically a refuge for these fish. They've been mostly extirpated from the Chattahoochee River south of Columbus from flathead catfish, who also have done the number on all the native bullheads in all the rivers that they're found, all the way through Georgia and up the Atlantic coast. But I bet a lot of you have never seen a spotted bullhead. They don't really get much bigger than this guy right here, but they are a cool fish. They're one of the coolest catfish you're ever going to see.
Sometimes removing dams is not just about restoring ecosystems, particularly when your river is between 2 large urban centers, and a downstream reservoir, a large downstream reservoir with and then 4 or 5 or 6 or however many it is reservoirs in a row upstream of here. You're only going to do so much for the fish community, but you did so much for the human community here. You have transformed the character of downtown Columbus and downtown Phenix City. You have created a haven for people who want to have outdoor time, and you've provided just beautiful vistas, and certainly you've provided a lot of business people opportunities to make livings here and to make major wealth with transforming downtown Columbus into what it's turned into, and having high-end condos in what used to be mill buildings. So in this case, it's hard not to say this wasn't just a humongous win for the whole area, regardless of the smaller influence that we seem to have had on the fish community. Sometimes it's worth remembering that it's not always just about the fish. The people matter too, particularly in a situation like this where there wasn't a whole lot. There was no species of special concern here other than shoal bass, and they have largely vanished from the area. But if we ever figure out how to raise shoal bass large scale in hatcheries, my prediction is you're going to see the creation of probably one of the most amazing urban bass fisheries in the country, because shoal bass would love this place. They might not be able to reproduce very well because of the flow variations and the severity of them, but once they're put in here, they can do just fine. And they make it in downtown Atlanta, which is a whole lot worse than here. Buford Dam's not only releasing lots of water, it's releasing super cold water, and they share the water with trout, and they still are doing fine there. So someday, this place will not only just be an amazing vista, it'll have incredible shoal bass fishery.